Buying a car should feel like a smart choice, not a lifetime of regret. But some cars on the market today are nothing but expensive mistakes waiting to happen. We're talking about engines failing before 50,000 kilometers, safety recalls that'll make your skin crawl, and repair bills that could buy you a decent used car. Today we're exposing the 15 worst cars that European buyers have completely given up on. And trust me, you want to see number 1. It's the most popular luxury SUV in Europe, but it's also the most likely to bankrupt its owner before hitting 80,000 kilometers. Starting with number 15, we have the Peugeot 3008. On a look, it turns heads with its sleek design and futuristic dashboard. It looks like something from a sci-fi movie, but living with it is a different story. This car has a long history of mechanical problems, and Peugeot hasn't done much to fix them. The 2025 model had to be recalled because of faulty front suspension ball joint bolts. Because if those bolts fail, the driver can lose control, and that's a big safety risk. Then there's the AdBlue system in the diesel models, supposed to reduce emissions, but it causes more trouble than it's worth. Owners constantly deal with warning lights, system failures, and expensive repairs. One unlucky driver had to pay over €6,500 just to get it fixed after driving only 65,000 kilometers. The timing chain issue is another major headache. It wears out too soon, leading to engine damage and, in some cases, complete engine failure. Peugeot has redesigned it several times, but the problem still exists. For a car in this price range, that's unacceptable. Overall, the 3008 is a car that impresses at first sight but quickly loses its appeal. Too many mechanical issues, expensive repairs, and a driving experience that doesn't stand out. But here's the thing, not every SUV is a bad deal. Some are absolute money pits, while others are worth every dollar. That's why in the next video, we're breaking down the 4 worst and 5 best SUVs you could buy in 2025. Next, at number 14 is Ford Fiesta. This car used to be one of the most popular small cars in Europe. It was affordable, practical, and fun to drive, but over time, reliability issues and changing market trends have pushed it aside. One of its biggest problems is the power shift automatic transmission. It's been a disaster. Owners report early clutch failures, jerky shifting, and grinding noises. Repairs can cost over €2,000, and some people have had the same problem return even after getting it fixed. That's frustrating for any car, but for an entry-level model, it's unacceptable. Customer service hasn't helped either. Many owners have had their cars stuck in dealerships for months, waiting for warranty repairs. Delays, poor service, and lack of communication have made the experience even worse. Ford's reputation for reliability has taken a hit because of this. Ford also never introduced an electric version of the Fiesta. While other brands have adapted, Ford let the Fiesta fall behind. By 2021, it wasn't even in the top 10 best-selling cars in the UK anymore. A shocking drop for a car that was once everywhere. At number 13 is the Skoda Octavia. Although it has its space, decent fuel efficiency, and a 5-star safety rating, once people get started driving it, the problems started rolling in. The DSG automatic gearbox was one of the biggest headaches. Jerky gear shifts, delayed acceleration, and complete failures were common. If the transmission gave up, the repair bill was easily over €1,000. The infotainment system was another disaster. Screens froze, touch control stopped working, and in many cases, the only fix was replacing the entire system. That's not what anyone wants in a car that's supposed to be practical. And then came the airbag recalls. In models from 2014 to 2018, some airbags inflated too slowly, while others were just faulty. That's not a minor issue, that's a serious safety risk. And if that wasn't enough, in 2016, a recall was issued for child locks that could randomly disengage. Imagine driving with kids in the back, thinking they're safe, only to find out the locks aren't even working. Design flaws made things worse. The rear window seals had manufacturing defects, leading to water leaks inside the car. If that didn't get you, the hatchback rubber grommets allowed water to pour into the luggage area whenever you opened the boot in wet weather. For a car that was supposed to be reliable and affordable, it ended up being frustrating to own. Then at number 12, Seat Leon wasn't any better. It had a sporty design and shared a lot of parts with the VW Golf, but under the surface, there were some serious problems. The dual mass flywheel was a nightmare. Many cars got stuck in gears, while others suffered from uncontrolled movements when shifting gears. For those who went with a 1.6 TDI diesel engine, things got even worse. The diesel particulate filter, DPF, needed cleaning every 500 kilometers. If the process was interrupted too often, the filter clogged up, leading to expensive repairs. The infotainment system was a major meltdown. More than half of all reported electrical faults were linked to it. Sat-nav stopped working, screens froze, and fixes took weeks because of part shortages. Then there were the airbag recalls. From 2013 to 2017, over 140,000 Seat Leon models had faulty airbag gas generators. In some cases, airbags deployed incorrectly. In others, they exploded and sent metal fragments flying into the cabin. That's not something you should like to spend money on. At number 11, the Ford Kuga looks like a solid choice on the surface, but the deeper you go, the more issues you find. Between 2013 and 2020, this car gave its owners more than a few surprises. The 1.6-liter EcoBoost engine in earlier models had a bad habit of overheating. Some even caught fire. Ford had to roll out recalls, adding coolant sensors and updating the software. But for a lot of owners, the damage was already done. The clutch wasn't much better. In models built from 2013 to 2018, the pressure plate could fail. When it did, the car let you know in the worst ways. Burning smells, loud noises, and eventually a clutch replacement. Even safety features weren't always reliable. Some models built between July and December 2016 had airbag issues. They just didn't deploy in a crash. For a car sold as a family SUV, that's a big problem. The diesel versions weren't much better. They had one of the worst reliability ratings in their category. Around 28% of diesel Kugas ended up stuck in repair shops for over a week. Some repairs ran up to €1,500, and that's after waiting for parts and dealing with downtime. Now, at number 10, the Nissan Qashqai started strong. It was one of the most popular crossovers when it launched. It even won awards. But as time went on, the problems kept piling up. One of the most common issues was the oxygen sensor failure. Some models had electrical shorts that killed the rear oxygen sensors. Nissan had to issue a recall, but if you had to fix it yourself, it was a €250 repair. Parking sensors weren't much better. Water damage made them unreliable. Either they stopped working completely, or they gave off false warnings. A replacement cost around €145. The brakes had their own problems. In 2017, Nissan had to recall some models because the brake hoses could wear out. They rubbed against the wheel arch protectors, which isn't something that should happen in a well-built car. Then there was the oil consumption issue. Some Qashqais burned oil at an alarming rate. If owners didn't stay on top of it, the engine could end up with serious damage. Technology was another weak point. The infotainment system felt old even when the car was new. If you wanted a sat-nav update, you had to take it to a dealer. The air conditioning system needed frequent regassing, adding more to ownership costs. The 5-star Euro NCAP rating from 2014 doesn't mean much anymore. By 2021, it no longer met updated safety standards. At number 9, the Volvo V40 seemed like a solid choice. It had the looks, the reputation, and the promise of safety, but things went downhill fast. This car had some serious problems, and one of the worst was the risk of catching fire. Volvo had to recall 70,000 units in the UK alone because of the 2.0-liter diesel engine could leak coolant. That might not sound like a big deal, but in the worst-case scenario, it led to engine fires. Then there was another recall for rubber fuel hoses that could crack and leak fuel. 2 different fire hazards in one car. If that wasn't bad enough, it had electrical problems too. Airbags that might not deploy, taillights that stopped working because of software issues, steering that felt disconnected from the road. And if you got the R-Design model with stiffer suspension, the ride was unbearably harsh. Maintenance costs didn't help. Some owners had to replace the clutch before hitting 65,000 kilometers. Diesel particulate filter issues could cost nearly £1,000 to fix. Some engines completely failed, and replacing them was over €7,800. It had strong safety ratings and Scandinavian styling, but that didn't make up for everything else. Next, at number 8, the 4th generation Mercedes C-Class should have been a refined, reliable luxury sedan. Instead, it became one of the most recalled cars in its class. Mercedes issued 20 recalls for this model. That's a ridiculous number. The list of problems was long. Some cars had airbags that didn't deploy. Others had power steering failures. Turbo oil return lines leaked. AMG models had rear axles that could snap. And some versions had software issues that caused engine stalls. Build quality wasn't great either. Brakes squeaked. Doors didn't seal properly, letting in wind noise. The artificial leather seats discolored too quickly. Even the infotainment system was outdated, and Mercedes charged €250 just to update the maps. Reliability surveys confirmed how bad it was. In a 2021 driver power survey, the C-Class ranked near the bottom. A third of owners reported serious faults. Some cars spent over a week in the shop waiting for repairs, and the costs were high. A standard B service could cost nearly €500 at the dealership. The C-Class had a great interior and advanced tech, but with so many problems, it didn't live up to the Mercedes reputation. At number 7, the BMW M3 is an exciting car to drive. It's powerful, aggressive, and has a strong presence on the road. But it also has some serious reliability issues, especially with its engine. The F80 M3 used the S55 engine, which had a major weak point, the crank hub. If it failed, the entire engine could be destroyed. Fixing this wasn't cheap. Some owners spent over €10,000 on repairs. Rod bearings were another problem. If they were tore out, the engine could seize up completely. The transmission had its own issues. The dual-clutch gearbox worked well at high speeds but felt jerky in stop-and-go traffic. Replacing the clutch outside of warranty was a €3,000 repair. On smooth roads, the M3 was great, but on regular streets, the stiff suspension made daily driving uncomfortable. The ride was rough, and the steering felt too sensitive for casual use. BMW servicing wasn't cheap either. Regular maintenance cost more than Audi or Mercedes alternatives. And when things went wrong, repairs were expensive. The M3 was a thrilling car, but only for people who could handle the risks. For daily use, it wasn't practical. At number 6, the Land Rover Discovery Sport has been a mess of problems since its launch in 2015. Transmission jerks, acceleration feels rough, and fuel economy is disappointing. Consumer Reports gave it a brutal 47 out of 100, and it's easy to see why. Owners have dealt with electrical failures, engine problems, and annoying interior rattles. Early models had vibrations in the accelerator and steering. Diesel versions had expensive diesel particulate filter (DPF) issues, and some even suffered from oil sump contamination, which led to serious engine damage. It doesn't stop there. Tailgates stopped working, electronic glitches were common, and repair costs kept piling up. Sales tell the story perfectly. In 2018, over 95,520 units were sold worldwide. By 2021, that number dropped to 12,843. It got squeezed out by the BMW X3, Audi Q5, and even Land Rover's own Defender. Now, there's talk that the Discovery Sport might not last much longer. It's not all bad. Safety is solid, with 9 airbags and automatic emergency braking. The cabin is spacious and practical, but none of that matters when maintenance costs are sky high and reliability is a gamble. For a family SUV, that's a deal breaker. Next, at number 5, the Mercedes-Benz GLC looks premium, drives well, and feels high-end inside, but it has a serious problem with reliability. Honest John's Satisfaction Index gave it a terrible 8.52 score, one of the lowest for any car in the UK, and it's not just a few unlucky owners. From the start, it had issues. Dashboards developed rattles, Doors made squeaking sounds and electronics were a constant problem. Some owners found their keyless entry stopped working, while others had battery connections that were loose straight from the factory. Water leaks were another common complaint. Mercedes struggled to fix these problems, and frustration kept building. It also dragged Mercedes's overall reliability ranking down. People expect premium quality from the brand, but the GLC didn't deliver. Despite being a bestseller globally, many owners walked away with a bad experience and decided to avoid Mercedes in the future. The worst part is the cost of ownership. Repairs are expensive, and the issues pop up early. Even though the GLC has a great interior and cutting-edge tech, it loses appeal fast when basic reliability isn't there. At number 4, the Audi A7 is stunning to look at and great to drive, but has some expensive problems that make ownership frustrating. Its air suspension system is known for failures, and when it goes bad, it's not a cheap fix. Some owners had to spend over €3,000 just to get it working again. The turbocharged engines are another issue. While they still perform well, they have a habit of developing oil leaks and overheating, sometimes leading to a full turbo replacement. The MMI infotainment system felt advanced when it first launched, but over time, many owners ran into problems. Screens froze, controls stopped responding, and Bluetooth connectivity was hit or miss. For a luxury car, that's not what people expect. Performance is still one of its strengths. The V6 engines push out 335 horsepower, handling is sharp, and it's packed with safety features. But long-term ownership is a different story. Compared to rivals like the BMW 5 Series and Mercedes E-Class, the A7 has higher maintenance costs and lower resale value. Buyers love how it looks and drives, but they also know it can be expensive to keep running. At number 3 is the Tesla Model S. Once the golden child of the EV world, the car that made people believe electric could be cool. But here's the thing, it's not looking so hot these days, especially in Europe. Consumer Reports doesn't even recommend it anymore. Suspension issues, touchscreen failures, and those fancy retractable door handles that just refuse to work. An €80,000 car where you can't even get inside properly. That's not exactly premium. Sales in Europe have collapsed. Germany saw a 59.5% drop, and in France, it's down 63.4%. That's not a dip, it's a nosedive. No more government subsidies, new competition from European and Chinese brands, and let's be honest, the Model S is starting to feel old. Customer service hasn't helped. One guy had his steering wheel peeling at just 64,000 kilometers, and Tesla shrugged it off. That's the kind of thing that makes people walk away from a brand. Even the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration had to step in because Tesla's touchscreens were failing while driving. Imagine losing rear visibility and climate control because the touchscreen just decides to stop working. And yet, it's still crazy fast. The acceleration, the range, the tech, it's all still impressive. But it's like Tesla is great at innovation and terrible at execution. That's why the Model S has become a weird mix of excitement and frustration. At number 2, the BMW i8 looked like a car from the future. Sleek, low, dramatic scissor doors. People expected something mind-blowing, but BMW gave it a 1.5-liter 3-cylinder engine. That's the same size as what you'd find in a basic hatchback. Yeah, it had an electric motor to help out, making 357 horsepower combined. But when you're paying over €125,000, you don't want a car that's getting left behind by an Audi R8 or a Mercedes AMG GT. The handling didn't help either. The mix of front-wheel electric and rear-wheel gas power never felt natural. It wasn't bad, it just wasn't what it should have been. The interior didn't do it any favors. It looked cool, but space was tight, and some of the materials felt cheap. A futuristic hybrid sports car that doesn't even feel premium inside. Reliability is another headache. Overheating, drivetrain problems, battery issues. People spent a fortune only to deal with constant repairs. and then the depreciation hit. Within months, some owners saw their i8 lose half its value. That's brutal. And now, at number 1, is the Range Rover Sport, a luxury SUV that wants to be tough and refined but ends up being neither. On paper, it's the perfect mix of off-road beast and luxury cruiser. In reality, it's got one of the worst reliability records in its class. Air suspension failures are common, and those repairs don't come cheap. We're talking thousands per axle. The electronics don't fare much better. Infotainment systems freezing, navigation acting up, climate controls doing whatever they want. Land Rover packed the Sport with high-end tech, but keeping it all working is a whole different battle. Maintenance costs are through the roof. Routine servicing is pricey, and when something breaks, you better have deep pockets. Fuel economy isn't helping either. 10 to 12 liters per 100 kilometers at best. Not a problem if you got money to burn, but for most people, that's just painful. And the resale value doesn't hold up. A lot of owners see their Range Rover Sport lose 50% of its value within 3 years. That's one of the worst in its class. Yet, people still buy them because they look great, have serious brand prestige, and when they're running properly, they feel amazing. But if reliability matters, this isn't the SUV to bet on.